you know, and you know, we're all among friends, but we strongly disagree on this issue. I've spent the last month doing research and reading so much about mayoral takeovers that I can't think of anything else. But I feel like there is no compelling evidence to show us that a mayoral takeover will do anything to address the many issues that Secretary Morgan has spoken about. Now, I have not heard any plan. I have not heard any major goals. I have not heard anything other than the superficial leadership change. That's what we're talking about. We are not talking about education reform. We're not talking about reform. We're talking about a superficial leadership change that gives us no information whatsoever on what the plan is or what the agenda is for reform. I have not seen that. So how can we address the fact that too many MPS students don't graduate? And how can we address the fact that those who do graduate are not proficient in math and reading? Well, a few things. Education does not exist in a vacuum. We live in a city where we have outrageous crime rates. And you will hear later that that has dropped. And we'll talk about that. We have a city where we have one of the highest teen pregnancy rates in the nation, especially for African American girls. We just learned that we are the 11th poorest city in the nation, and that will change with new numbers once we see the effects of this recession. We know that we have some of the lowest property ownership rates for people of color in the nation. We know that we have some of the worst health disparities in the nation. Okay, so we're not talking, education doesn't exist in a vacuum. And when leadership has not addressed those issues, how can I be convinced that leadership can now take on the mammoth system that we call MPS? It has not been demonstrated. We have not dealt very well with the many disparities that exist in this community as it is. So I'm not convinced that we can move any further and show any progress in taking on MPS. I just think this is a superficial move. I don't care whose name is on the door. I want to talk about real reform. And we're not talking about that right now. The last thing I'm going to say is that the Secretary talked about the achievement gap. We have a despicable, unacceptable achievement gap. No one denies that. And my lack of support for the takeover does not mean support for the status quo. I'm going to be real clear about that. We have to have reform in our system. However, again, I don't think a mayoral takeover does it. If we want to talk about an achievement gap and we want to say that somehow this move is going to reduce that achievement gap, help me understand how in Boston, after a decade of mayoral control, the achievement gap remains staggering. Between 2003 and 2005, the achievement gap in math between white and black 8th graders grew. The achievement gap between white students and black students and Hispanic students in the 4th grade also grew. There are many examples where takeovers do not work. And there's no indication that we can do this any better. If you want to really talk about this, if you want to be candid, we're talking about money. Okay? Let's just keep it hot. We're talking about money. Okay? And we are on a money chase that we are not going, I don't think we're going to succeed. And I also would like to pose a question before the end of the night. I hope someone will answer for me why we have been raising thousands upon $10,000s of dollars for a campaign for this. I would just like someone to answer that question. Why we're raising money, tens and thousands of dollars for a campaign for this issue, when our schools, our kids don't even have books. So, what we need to do is address the social issues that our children have to face every single day. And then we can talk about why little Johnny can't read. Because maybe little Johnny has not eaten. Maybe little Johnny is in poverty. Maybe little Johnny saw somebody get shot last night. We need to talk about the real